Hey, I'm Dr. Nate Bosch, the director of the Lilly Center for Lakes and Streams. We're on the Lake Doctor podcast here, and with me, Matt Burlingame. Matt, what do you do at the Lilly Center?
Hey, Nate. I'm the Assistant Director of Research, so I'm in charge of our research projects that we do at the Lilly Center.
All right, and your expertise is fisheries biologist, right?
Correct. I have my bachelor's degree in fisheries and master's in biology with a concentration in fisheries. I worked as a research biologist with the DNR for about 5 years, and also did some data analysis with them through fisheries research as well.
Cool. All right, so today we're talking about fish, and we've got an aquarium here in front of me. Those of you who are listening on the podcast, this might be an opportunity for you to switch over and actually watch this segment on YouTube. We've got an aquarium that normally is in the back of our set here on the Lake Doctor podcast. We've moved it right up front and center onto the table in front of us. And so we're going to go through some of these fish, talk about different characteristics here today. So Matt, why don't you take us through the fish that we have in this aquarium, what type they are, and how you know that they're those type.
Okay, well, we have 3 different species in here and also 3 different families of fish represented. The black one here at the top, kind of football shaped, that's a black crappie. And the little one as well as a black crappie is kind of faded out. They were saying that the channel catfish was nipping at him a little bit. Maybe he's a little bit stressed. Black crappie and white crappie are in the sunfish family, Centrarchidae, along with bluegill and long ear and red ear and pumpkin seed, and also largemouth bass and smallmouth bass.
Okay.
And then the other species here, with the orange fins and the dark bars on the side, that's a yellow perch, part of the perch family related to walleye. And then the last one down here is a channel catfish. You can tell it's a young of the year by its spots. But they're in, obviously, the catfish Ictaluridae family.
We have different body shapes here, so maybe tell us a little bit about the anatomy of these fish as far as what the different parts of the fish are called, maybe the different fins, because obviously we have some different shapes and different fins represented here.
So I think this perch is kind of up in the front. So the fin on the top on their back is called a dorsal fin, and a lot of fish have, we call a spiny dorsal fin and a soft dorsal fin. So the spiny dorsal fin is the one at the front. A lot of times they'll have spines. So the black crappie and the perch, those first couple fin rays are actually spines, and they can poke you and they hurt. And then obviously their tail fin is called a caudal fin, and then the fins coming out by their gills on the side, so they'd be like our arms, are pectoral fins.
Okay.
And then the pair of fins underneath are pelvic fins. I guess with the channel catfish, he's got this little fin all by itself along the back there. It's a fleshy fin called an adipose fin. And catfish also have spines in their fins. They have spines on their dorsal fin, one spine, that first ray, and then the first ray of their pectoral fins on the side have a spine also. And a lot of people think that channel catfish, their barbels, their little whiskers, or their spines will sting you. They're poisonous. That's not true.
Okay.
But if you get stuck with a spine, it does hurt very bad. And, and those spines are also serrated, so if you get them deep in, they're hard to come out. So it's almost like having fishing hook barbs along the back of it. So.
Okay. What about any other interesting characteristics about either the perch or the crappie that you can tell us about?
Well, the crappie, you can tell its body shape is kind of compressed. We call it laterally compressed. And black crappie, like a lot of sunfish, like bluegill, like to hang out in the aquatic vegetation where they can pick maybe aquatic insects off the vegetation, or crappie a lot of times will eat minnows, eat small fish, so will ambush out and can attack. Perch a lot of times will be in the vegetation as well, but a lot of times they'll move out into deeper water in the summer when the water warms up, and it will kind of school out there. They're piscivores, so they'll eat minnows, smaller fish primarily, but zooplankton and other things. Channel catfish, most people think they're bottom-dwelling trash fish. They will eat just about anything, but they're essentially predators as well.
So Matt, you mentioned about the catfish here that it was young of the year, and you could tell that by its spots. So tell us a little bit about how do you age fish, the fish that are in this aquarium right here, how old do you think they are?
Okay. So most of these, based on size, are probably what we call young of the year. Although these, this bigger black crappie we got last year, so he's probably going to be a 1-year-old fish, and probably the same with the perch. Again, the channel catfish, when they're juvenile, so younger, that can be 0, 1, 2, 3 years probably. They'll have black spots on them, and actually their scientific name is Ictalurus punctatus, and punctatus means spotted.
Oh, interesting.
So channel catfish, we can age them and the other fish as well, but 2 different methods. So for most fish that have scales, when we capture them in a survey, we'll scrape a scale off them, and we'll take that scale back to the lab and press it into a plastic microscope slide, and it makes an impression. And fish scales, just like, well, how do you age a tree?
Yeah, with the tree rings, right?
Rings. So fish scales do the same thing. So there's rings on a scale that we call annuli, and in the summer when they're growing, those rings are spaced further apart, and then in the winter when water temperatures get cold, the fish growth slows down, so those rings stack up, so it makes like a darker ring. So we take those scales, press them on a slide, look at them under those microfish readers, and we can count how old the fish is. Okay,
just by a scale.
Just by a
so
scale.
You're not killing the fish
Right.
to be able to
Right.
measure that.
Catfish don't have scales. So what you can do with the channel catfish is we take their spine off. Typically, you don't want to cut it off because you need to get it close to the shoulder joint. So there's a way you can actually almost dislocate that spine and pull it off the fish. And then they use a jeweler's saw and cut really thin sections. And the spine, just like the scales, also put down rings. So it's almost the same process.
Yeah.
Both of those are relatively accurate, but have issues with each process. And probably the best way to age a fish is they have ear bones like we do. So you cut the fish open, take out their ear bone, and you can cut them with a jeweler saw. Sometimes you can just put a little drop of oil on them and read them whole. Obviously, we've got to kill the fish for that to happen, but that's probably the most accurate way
Because those ear bones are internal.
Right.
And, is that called otoliths?
Otoliths,
I think I
yeah.
remember hearing about that before. All right, so tell us how the life cycle of these fish goes. So you talked about most of these fish are pretty young here. How did they start their life, and maybe how big? We talked about how big the catfish can get, but maybe some of the others, how big can they get?
So we'll start with the crappie. So a sunfish, they'll build a nest like you've seen in their sand around the lake, those little moonscape that creates the males dig a nest. They convince a female to come, and they lay the eggs and fertilize them, and then the male guards the nest, and eventually those eggs hatch, and they stick around the nest for a while, and then they disperse and go on their own. Channel catfish, similar. The male will find a nest. They like to breed in cavities. So a similar thing, they'll find a cavity, and if they can't find a cavity, they'll also try to dig some kind of depression to lay their eggs in, convince the female to come, and they'll lay the eggs, fertilize them, protect the young of the year, the fry for a while, and then they go off on their own. Yellow perch are interesting because they'll, when they spawn, they don't build a nest. It's more of a broadcast
Method
spawning. And perch eggs, if you go out in the lake early spring, kind of after ice out, sometimes in the shallow, you'll find long ribbons of white, like gelatinous ribbon.
Yeah.
Sometimes kind of almost like in a double helix, like a DNA molecule almost.
Yeah.
But it's perch eggs. And so when the perch female lays her eggs, they'll swim in a circle
Interesting.
and drop the eggs, and those eggs will attach to vegetation or woody debris, branches or something in the water, or even just lay on the bottom. But I was telling you before, when I worked with the DNR and we do broodstock muskie collection at Webster Lake, a lot of times there'd be perch eggs stuck on the leads of the nets and stuff. So
That is really cool. And so those perch eggs will connect onto each other.
yeah, it's
Okay.
just like one big ribbon.
Yeah, and then you said fry, so that would be the fish when so you've got larval fish.
Yeah,
and
larval fish will still have part of the yolk sac on
Yep.
them, and then once that yolk sac is gone, then they're fry.
Okay.
And then they become, as they get, finger size, they call them a fingerling.
Well, another thing we wanted to talk about with these fish in this aquarium here is to tell you about the Lilly Center for Lakes and Streams aquarium program that we have. We have both the classroom lake experience. We also have the lake in the library. And these are programs where we bring aquariums similar to this, only this is a 10-gallon aquarium. We bring 40-gallon aquariums into local classrooms, into local libraries, into local community centers. And they have fish just like this, local native fish from our lakes here in northern Indiana. We've actually also been starting to experiment with live plants. So the aquarium in front of us here has artificial plants, but we have live plants. We're using a lot of eelgrass in those live planted aquariums to try to get both native plants as well as native fish both in the aquarium to be able to really highlight our lake ecosystems and how they operate so that students from their desk or patrons to the library or community center can start to learn more about these really cool creatures. We usually will have a library of books that go along with them, some curriculum that will go when it's in classrooms, and we'll have one of our educators come out and talk about those fish, and it's really a great program. So, all right, well, thank you, Matt, for being
welcome.
here and teaching us a little bit about these fish.
I'll talk about fish anytime.
Okay, sounds good.